I'm Robert Cardoza, and you're watching On the Street, the intersection of business and politics. This is where we take all of the information that is brought around the country and put it into one funnel and find out what the truth is. And you can only get that right here on the street. I want to remind everybody that you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+. I encourage you to do it, ask you to do it, like me there, tweet me there, do everything you want to do there. I want to also encourage you to email me at robertcardozalive@gmail.com. It's where they get the emails that we deal with here on the show. And this is one of my very favorite parts of the show, and that is the email section, where I get to answer questions that you've sent in. Now, the first question comes from John Jackson. John Jackson is from Escondido, California, and he says, can I go to jail if I can't pay my taxes? Well, you know what? It's unlikely that that can happen, but it could happen because there's a big difference between tax evasion and not being able to pay your taxes. The difference is you intend not to pay it and you don't even file or you cheat. Here's the thing, whether you can pay your taxes or not, file your taxes, even if you can't pay them. You know, the government's eventually going to send you a bill and it'll either become deemed uncollectible or you can't do it. The government will also work with you on these things. But if you just ignore them and it becomes year after year after year because you didn't do it one year and the next year you're afraid to do it because you'll get caught for the year you didn't, eventually you're going to get into some big trouble. But you know what? Highly unlikely that you're going to go to jail for not paying your taxes. But you could go to jail for not filing your taxes. Does the name Al Capone mean anything to you? You know, he went to prison for tax evasion, not for murder, not for prohibition, for a tax evasion. And they can go after you for those things, but it's highly unlikely that you're going to go to prison or to jail for not paying your taxes, especially in this kind of an economy. But you have other options, lots of other options there. And what usually happens is it's somebody that is self-employed and they didn't pay their self-employment tax, which is Social Security and Medicare, or they owned their own business and they were withholding deductions for income taxes for federal and state and Social Security from their employees, but they didn't send it in. They kept it and used it for their operating expenses. Those people can get into really serious trouble. Probably not go to prison, but lose their businesses and lose their assets, and so you want to be really, really careful about those things. Now, my second email comes from Jerry Mathers. Jerry Mathers is writing me from New Mexico, says, can I negotiate a lower tax liability? Now, that's an interesting question, and I think I know where you're headed here. I'm guessing that you owe a lot of money in taxes, and you just, because of the economy or whatever reason, you just don't have it, or maybe a number of other reasons for it. But let's talk about, can you do it? The truth is yes, you can lower your tax liability. There's a process that's known as offer in compromise. Now, there are rules for that to see if you qualify. And if you do qualify, you can absolutely lower your tax liability. You heard this on television, you heard it on the radio. I paid 10 cents on the dollar on my taxes. Well, you know, be careful about those things. They're kind of a scam. There are companies that take the information, they charge you up front. There's no guarantee they're going to get any reduction at all, and very few people pay just 10 cents on the dollar. Here's the criteria. The government looks at you, they see what your disposable income is after necessities per month. They multiply that by 60 to get 60 months or a 5-year period. Then they look at your assets. They take your assets, the value of that minus any debt on it. They subtract from that balance 20% for fire sale value, and that gives you a net worth. They add that to that 5-year figure, and that is the minimum amount that the federal government would accept in an offer and compromise to mitigate your taxes. Well, for a lot of people, that could be 10 cents on the dollar, and they not only will, but they're obligated by law to do that, but it's not a simple process. And if you go to a professional to do it, it's probably not going to cost you any less than $7,000 for the process. So you got to figure how much money you actually owe and where it's going to be with this. And that process can take up to and sometimes exceed a full year. And I can guarantee you the IRS is going to come visit you at home. They want to see what your lifestyle is. What do you have any collectibles at home? What's going on there? They're going to interview you. They're going to make you prove what your rent is or your house payment. They're going to make you prove what your grocery bill is. They're going to make you do all of those things. But in the end, if you are insolvent and or you can have a lower amount because of that formula, they're going to let you have it. Now, the big deal is, for 8 years, you've got to stay current with your taxes, and you got to pay them. You can't, otherwise the whole thing goes away. So you want to be careful with that. I want to remind everybody that there's always options. I want to remind everybody that we're brought to you by Biz TV, TiVo, and Ustream TV. You can go to YouTube and find us right there. Just search Robert Cardoza Live. You're watching On the Street. This is the intersection of business and politics. I am Robert Cardoza.